Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Welcome. I am Rabbi Jonathan Blake. I'm joined tonight by Cantor Amanda Kleinman and Pete Malinverni at the keys, Jerome Morris on the things that you hit with your hands. And we're so happy that you're with us. We wish you Shabbat Shalom. This is the first Shabbat of summer, and it is also the first Shabbat summer service. Now, it may be a little bit hard this year to tell the difference between a summer service and any old Shabbat service. The big difference comes in the middle of the service when Cantor and I will take a little bit of a step to the side and invite a member of our WRT community to offer the Devar Torah. So during the summer, especially in a summer when the high holidays begin exactly 2 months and 1 week from tonight, oy vavoy, we invite members of the WRT community to offer the Devar Torah. So keep coming back on subsequent Friday nights, and you'll hear many voices from around the congregational community of WRT. I'll say more about tonight's speaker a little bit later on. We would love for you to take a moment and find a way, even if it's just with your eyes and your smile, and you can even smile with your eyes, you can tell that someone's smiling even when they have a mask on. Maybe make eye contact with somebody you haven't yet seen tonight. Wish that person Shabbat Shalom. So we're going to kindle the lights for Shabbat. We'd invite you to bless along with us.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
We also want to take a moment while the candles are lit, symbolizing the light of life and possibility on this Sabbath day, for all of the joy that our community contains. So, we're going to restore a long-standing custom of Westchester Reform Temple before we proceed with our Kabbalat Shabbat prayers tonight, and ask that if you have had something nice happen in the last week, let's say, including today, like if today is your anniversary, Joan and Larry, that would be the kind of thing that you could share with the community. So, does anyone have anything to share? Yes, Larry. Mazel tov. Mazel tov. Happy anniversary, and may this be a fitting conclusion to your 5th decade of married life. Mazel tov. Others, should you have any, please share with us. Yes, please, Audrey. Mazel tov. Mazel tov. Yes, Jeff. Mazel tov.
Mazel tov.
Oh, please wish her mazel tov from us. Oh, right, Max is cheering along with you. Awesome. Oh, oh yes, you're right, it is. I can tell by the hair and the height. Thank you, Benji. Nancy. That's great. Somewhere good, I hope. That sounds really good. Anyone else?
I'll share some joy by way of an introduction, which is, if you look all the way in the back of the sanctuary, you will see Jesse, our audio engineer, who is just beginning tonight. And so I wanted to introduce you to Jesse, and also, this is my joy, because anyone who has ever spent time in the sanctuary knows that this sound system in this room is very complex. And so it is a tremendous joy to have Jesse here with us today. We're so glad to have you joining us.
Fantastic. Thank you, Jesse. And actually, it's amazing because the sound system is so sophisticated. Cantor and I are both speaking Hebrew right now, and it's auto-translating so that it makes sense.
No, that's the new sound system.
That's the new sound system, I see.
So we'll welcome Shabbat together now on page 192. If you turn to page 192, you'll say, but Cantor Kleinman, this is the Shabbat morning service, and that is because the words you'll find on page 192 come from this week's Torah portion from the book of Numbers. The words are Matovu Ohalecha Yaakov, Mishkenotecha Yisrael, how fair are your tents, O Jacob, your dwelling places, O Israel. These are words from this evening's Torah portion that we will read a little bit later on in our service, but are actually words that traditionally are recited anytime you enter a synagogue. So while they're found in the morning service in our prayer book, they're appropriate for this evening as well. Please join us, page 192.
Turn now to page 138 as we sing Lecha Dodi. Look for our cues if you need to know which verse we're on. We're going to sing verses 1 and 2, 5 and 9. And for the last verse, we'll invite you to stand, face the entrance to the sanctuary, and welcome the Sabbath bride. 138.
Shamor וזכור בדיבורך
B'nei Shabbat Nekavela. Likrat Shabbat lechu v'nelcha, Hi mekor ha'beracha, Merosh mikedem nesucha, Sof ma'aseh b'machshavat tefila. Lecha dodi likrat kala, B'nei Shabbat nekavela. Lecha dodi likrat kala, B'nei Shabbat nekavela. Hitoreri, hitoreri, Ki va'orech kumi orim, Uri, uri, shir daberi, Evod Adonai alayich yiglav. Lecha dodi likrat kala, B'nei Shabbat nekavela. Lecha dodi likrat kala, B'nei Shabbat nekavela. Hoi v'shalom aterem balam, Gam b'simcha uv'tzolam, Toch emunei am segulam, Boi chalam, boi chalam. Lecha dodi likrat kala, B'nei Shabbat nekavela. Lecha dodi likrat kala, B'nei Shabbat nekavela. Page 146, we remain standing. Baruchu et Adonai HaMevorach.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach leolam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach leolam va'ed.
Join me at the top of 149. Praise to you, Adonai our God, from whom the evening flows. Your wisdom sets the way on which time and season glide. Your breath guides the sail of the stars. Creator of the tide of time and light, you guide the current of day into night. As heaven spans to infinity, you set its course for eternity. Praise to you, Adonai our God, from whom the evening flows.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bidvaro mariv aravim bechokma poteach she'arim. God of creation, who makes the evening fall from light into darkness with the setting of the sun. You unfold the heavens with brilliant moon and stars and wrap our souls with peace. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam
152.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem, Kevod Malchuto, Leolam Vaed. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha bechol levavcha uvechol nafshecha uvechol meodecha ve'hayu advarim ha'ele asher anochi metzavecha hayom al levavecha ve'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam v'shivtecha b'veitecha uvlechtecha v'derech uv'shochbecha uv'kumecha uk'shartam leot al yadecha v'hayu letotafot b'neinecha uchtavtam al mezuzot beitecha uv'isharecha למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
The notion of human freedom may be first attributable to the Jewish people, who celebrated freedom as a gift from God, as a right. And this, of course, you have to understand that approaching a pharaoh in ancient Egypt with the message, "Let my people go," was absolutely an unthinkable concept in the ancient world. The assumption was that some people are born to be lords and masters and other people to a life of servitude. And the Jewish people, with the help of God and their leadership, completely shattered that notion. And so the important thing about Mi Chamocha is not only that we celebrate something that happened to our people long ago, but the way in which we, as instruments of the divine, are here on earth in order to bring freedom to all of God's creatures. And that doesn't just mean at the national level. It means that part of our work in this world is to liberate ourselves and others from the shackles of suffering wherever they are found. Mi Chamocha 158, please join us.
יפת אדוני את יעקב וגאלו מיד חזק ממנו ברוך אתה אדוני גאל ישראל.
Amen. 160.
תשכיבנו אדוני אלוהינו לשלום, להעמידנו שומרנו לחיים. תשכיבנו אדוני אלוהינו לשלום, להעמידנו שומרנו לחיים.
164. Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor veHanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, Vekonei Hakol, V'zocher chasdei avo ve'imahot, u'mevii geula livnei v'neihem, leman shemo be'ahava, melech ozer u'moshia u'magen, Baruch atah Adonai, magen Avraham ve'ezrat Sarah, atah gibor le'olam Adonai, Mechaye hakol atarav lehoshia, morid hatab, mechalkel chayim Bechesed, Mechaye hakol
berachamim rabim, somech noflim verofei cholim, umatir asurim, umekayem emunato lishenei afar. Michamocha b'gevurot u'midol melach, melech memit u'mechayeh u'matzmiach Yeshua, v'ne'eman ata lahachayot hakol. Baruch atah Adonai mechayeh hakol, atah kadosh
קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יהללוך סלה. ברוך אתה אדוני, האל הקדוש.
You're invited to take these few moments of quiet to offer your own prayers. You may follow in the Siddur or offer a prayer from the heart. You may choose to remain standing or be seated, as is your custom. We take a few moments for private reflection. be seated. So we're very happy to be here in summer mode, and we thought that we would enter into the coming weeks of worship with a little bit of a Torah reading tonight. There are many inspired passages of the Torah that teach us how to live a Jewish life according to the laws of our tradition and the ways of God. You have Abraham and Sarah, who are given the opportunity to chart an uncharted path to a new destination, a promised land. You have Jacob's ladder, and you have Joseph and his amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat, and you have Moses being floated down the river Nile in a reed basket, safeguarded by his big sister Miriam so that he will come to no harm, and you have the deliverance of the Jewish people from bondage and the giving of the law at Sinai. This week's Torah portion is not exactly like that. It concerns a Gentile sorcerer, a wicked king, and a talking donkey. It's kind of like the stuff that gets left on the cutting room floor of Shrek. We're going to hear a lot more about this story later tonight, but it is also a profoundly moving Torah portion about how God shows up in our lives through blessings. And it's especially poignant, I think, to talk about the subjects of blessings in the time of curse on this Shabbat, when this, for some of us, may be our first return to an in-person worship service in almost a year and a half or more. We also know that many people have suffered during the pandemic. And in addition to the physical toll that COVID has taken, there's also the emotional toll inflicted by isolation and loneliness. And for those people who have lost loved ones, even not to COVID, but during COVID, the pandemic has affected them too, because there's nothing to substitute for opening your home for the hugs and kisses and good wishes when you're sitting Shiva. And there's nothing really that can substitute for the ability to feel a loved one's hand when you're saying goodbye. Our congregant Joel Sugar lost two people who were very dear to him during the pandemic. First his son, and then shortly after his father Hyman. And now, upon the conclusion of his period of mourning, as he has said, his final first year of Kaddish for his dad, Joel actually called the temple and said it would be meaningful to know that there's some Jewish way of affirming that the road through bereavement, the road through the valley of the shadow, does emerge on another side and does lead to a reaffirmation of life and hope and possibility. And we told Joel, well, one traditional Jewish way of marking the end of a year of saying Kaddish is to be called forward to the Torah for an Aliyah. And so, Joel, you're here tonight, and we're very honored by your presence. Would you please come forward at this time? And if you are vaccinated and comfortable doing so, on the bima, we have an unmasked protocol, so you're welcome to take your mask off as you come up. And we're grateful that you've joined us tonight to help honor our community and the memory of your loved ones through this special ritual. You can come over to my side here where I have the blessings. You've got a copy as well.
Baruch et Adonai Hamvorach.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorach Leolam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorach Leolam Va'ed. Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Asher Bachar Banu Mikol Hamim V'natan Lanu Et Torato. Baruch Ata Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen. Before I chant, I'll just orient us to where we are in the Torah portion. I'll translate as I go, so don't worry about finding a page in your Torah commentary. But as Rabbi Blake mentioned, the Moabite king, whose name is Balak, has seen the strength of the Jewish people and is frightened, and so has asked the sorcerer that Rabbi Blake mentioned before, whose name is Bilam, to curse the Jewish people. But every time that Bilam attempts to curse the Jewish people, he is possessed with the Spirit of God and instead blesses the Jewish people. And so this, what I am reading from now, is the third time that Bilam is asked to curse the Jewish people. You can probably guess what's going to happen, and you'll be correct. And this is the section of our Torah portion that includes those well-known words, Ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov, Mishkenotecha Yisrael. Amen. Vayar Bilam
ישראל, ולא הלך כפעם בפעם לקראת נחשים, וישת אל המדבר פניו.
And Balaam the sorcerer saw that it was favorable in the eyes of the Eternal to bless the Israelite people. And so he did not go as he had previously to seek out omens, but instead he turned his face toward the wilderness.
וישא בלעם את עיניו, וירא את ישראל שוכן לשבטיו, ותהי עליו רוח אלוהים.
And so Balaam lifted his eyes, and he saw the Israelites dwelling among their tribes, and the spirit of the Eternal possessed him.
וישא משלו, ויאמר, נאום בלעם בנו ואור, ונאום הגבר שתום העין.
And Balaam the sorcerer said, "This is the word of Balaam, son of Beor, the word of a man whose eyes have been opened."
נאום שומע אמרי אל אשר מחזה שדי יחזה נופל וגלוי עיניים.
The word of a man who hears the speech of the Eternal, who sees the visions of the Eternal, who is prostrate but whose eyes are opened.
מה טובו אוהליך יעקב, משכנותיך ישראל.
How goodly are your tents, O Jacob, your dwelling places, O Israel.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torat emet, v'chayei olam natan b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai, noten haTorah.
Amen.
So Joel, let us say Yasher Koach to you, as we say Yasher Koach to you, Cantor, as well. Thank you for coming before our community tonight and actually living out the deepest message and wisdom that our Torah portion communicates, which is that with God's help, sometimes even a curse can be transformed into words of blessing. But of course, it was your choice to do that and to take the mournful words of Kaddish and conclude them with joyful words of blessing for the reading of Torah tonight. I remember that yours was the last house of Shiva that I visited before we were fully locked down for several months. Just an hour before services started tonight, I was at one of my first in-person Shiva minions afterward. It's been a really long time, and I was reminded how powerful the need for human connection in the time of mourning is. So thank you for sharing your humanity, your Judaism, and your love of your family with us here tonight. Yasher Koach. Shabbat Shalom. Thank you. We're going to leave our Torah out in front of us as a sacred witness to the possibilities that even difficult curses can indeed be transformed into opportunities to bless God's name. There's a very special formula of blessing in the Jewish tradition known as Misha Berach. Misha Berach is conventionally associated with healing, and that is how we will use this prayer in a moment. But the words literally just mean, may the one who blessed. And often in Jewish tradition, any number of blessings can be invoked through that formula. You're sending off somebody on a special journey, you can offer a Misha Berach for a traveler. You have somebody who has come up to perform a ritual honor like an aliyah to the Torah, you can say a Misha Berach prayer, may the one who blessed our ancestors also bless the person who continues in the goodly ways of our ancestors. And this Misha Berach is a way of asking God to be with those who need healing. And so through the power of our blessing, let us transform the pain and suffering that our loved ones may feel into, at least for an ephemeral moment, a little bit of comfort. If you would like to share the name of a loved one for this healing prayer, you can stand and offer those names when my eyes meet yours, or you can remain seated and speak the names quietly as well. Our WRT community is also praying this Shabbat for Robert Zagoria, Tony and Gina DeLappa, Naomi Bat Moshe Esther, Mark Sosnowitz, Matthew Atwood, Stephen Bleckman, Gloria Byron, Anthony and Elizabeth Danker, Mordechai Ben Yaakov, Norman Goldberg, Georgette Nussbaum, Deborah Kapnick, Nicole Schusse, Neil Glaskall, Leah Greenspan, Andrea Reiner, Chaim Ben Sippora, Masha Bat Sora, Aviva Tzila Bat Esther Bela, Jeffrey Millman, Ken Master, Mary Deutsch, Chava Bat Sara, Eliyahu Chaim Ben Fredel, Sheila Fried, Malka Tzipora Bas Rachel, Tamar Bat Malka, Heschel Meir Ben David Achana, and Howard Cowan. You're invited to join us if you'd like the words of our healing prayer. They are on page 371. Please rise. It's really a delight that I don't have to preach this summer. It's also a delight that during the summer months, the long-standing minhag custom of Westchester Reform Temple is to invite members of our extended WRT community to take on the responsibility of sharing a few words of Torah each Friday night with our community. And the mission, should the invitee choose to accept it, is not to give a scholarly excursus on the weekly parasha, so much as it is to look within the wisdom of the weekly Torah portion and find a way to reflect it back on their own personal story or personal views, personal commitments. When I was on sabbatical this winter, practicing the sacred art of study and restorative practice, which was really such a blessing, and I'm so grateful to this WRT community for the opportunity to experience this winter's sabbatical, as I hope to do again next winter, maybe with a little bit more flexibility as well. It's not like life at WRT stopped, actually far from it. And in fact, in, I believe it was February, I get this email saying, Rabbi Blake, we would like you to meet Hila Reichman. She is our leading candidate to be WRT's incoming Director of Development. And I said, fantastic. This is a wonderful thing for Westchester Reform Temple because we have long sought partnership with a person whose expertise in development intersects with one's passion for serving the Jewish people and the Jewish community. And we found exactly that intersection of qualities in Hila. So I'm going to say a few words about Hila, who is here tonight with members of her family, and it's really special to wish all of you Shabbat Shalom and a first warm welcome to Westchester Reform Temple. Hila comes from Israeli roots. Her name is pronounced on the second syllable, the way Israelis pronounce their names, Hila. She comes from Israeli roots and settled in the United States when she was just 11 months old. Growing up in Texas, Virginia, Michigan, and Wisconsin, she eventually moved to New York 16 years ago. Hila completed her master's in social work and Jewish communal service at the University of Michigan and began her professional career in the Jewish community at Hillel. Over the past 2 decades, Hila has worked to strengthen Jewish communities by creating and implementing comprehensive fundraising campaigns. Prior to joining us here at WRT, she spent 14 years as the director of the annual campaign at the Heschel School in Manhattan. She lives in New Rochelle with her husband Josh Poditz and their sons Oren and Ilan. And Oren, will you raise your hand so I know who is who? Thank you, Oren. That means you're Ilan. And Hila, this must be your dad. Benny, welcome to Westchester Reform Temple. We also understand that you're a fairly recent resident of New York, and so we hope that you will feel warmly embraced in this great state. So, without further delay, it gives me great pleasure to introduce Hila Reichman to our community and to ask her forward to share some Torah with us tonight.
Can you see me? Yeah. Shabbat Shalom. The images of tents or temporary dwellings comes up often in our tradition. In the book of Genesis, we have the story of Abraham inviting guests into the tent. This visual of having all sides open to encourage guests to feel welcome has always stuck with me. Tents are also a part of our holiday traditions. During Sukkot, we erect temporary huts to illustrate the booths that the Jews dwelled in during the 40 years of travel through the wilderness after the exodus from Egypt on their way to the Promised Land. Anyone who knows me well knows I'm the last person you would find spending a night in a tent. Camping in the wilderness is not on my bucket list. That being said, I've always loved the imagery of the tent and how central it is to so many of our Jewish texts. I was thrilled when I saw that tents were part of this week's Torah portion, Balak. This portion is named after King Balak, who was afraid of the newly created Jewish people who had just left Egypt amidst plagues and miracles. King Balak hired a pagan prophet named Balaam to lay a curse on the Jewish people. Balaam knew, as did all the nations at the time, that the children of Israel were blessed people with God on their side. Thus, the Almighty would never allow a curse to prevail. Balaam's strategy was to find some shortcomings of the Jews and to point it out in his curse, thus invoking God's anger toward him. Fortunately, his attempts were not only unsuccessful, but he ended up bestowing the most powerful blessing upon the Jews. As Balaam stood at the peak of Peor, looking down upon the tents of the Israelites, he spoke these words, Ma tovu olecha Yaakov bishkonetecha Israel. How good are your tents, Jacob, your holy dwelling places, Israel. These sacred words have become an integral part of our daily prayers. Traditionally, this blessing from Balaam is recited upon first entering the synagogue sanctuary, before formal prayers begin, as we mark the transition from the outside world into the sacred space of the synagogue community. The text reminds us of the importance of our communal worship space. As we set forth in prayer, the words inspire and uplift, reminding us of how we see and understand ourselves. Many scholars have raised the question of, why would we name a parsha for an evil person who wished only to curse the Jews? In the whole Torah, there are only 6 parshiot named for individual people: Noah, Sarah, Jethro, Korah, Balak, and Pinchas. And except for Balak, they are all righteous people. Rabbi Yossi Lu suggests the parsha is named Balak to emphasize the powerful transformation required to change a sinister curse into a blessing. In the same way that we are commanded to remember Amlak, the biblical nation that attacked the Israelites during their exodus from Egypt, Parshat Balak reminds us that even when others have wished us harm, we have found the goodness in the world and in each other to prevail and to grow as a people. This notion of transformation seems very fitting to what we've all just experienced over these past 16 months. Living through a pandemic has changed us. There is no doubt that we are different as individuals and as a community today. For those of us returning to WRT for the first time in 16 months, it is not business as usual. We are different today than we were the last time we set foot inside this sacred space. We've spent the past 16 months dwelling in our own versions of Oalim, tents. Like the tents of the Israelites in the desert, they provide us with shelter and a place to live. But as we emerge from this pandemic, we strive to create mishkanot, holy dwelling places, sacred spaces. But why imagine these spaces as oalim, as tents? Why step into our beautiful sanctuary and reduce it to a temporary structure, vulnerable to the elements, rather than a more permanent brick-and-mortar edifice? It strikes me that there is something incredibly powerful about finding goodness in the temporary, the vulnerable, the frail. For one, it makes us aware of God's kindness and protection during the hardest of times. And it also reminds us not to rest on our laurels, because we can never take permanence for granted. No matter how high we build and how beautiful our sanctuaries, we are never invulnerable. One day we are traveling across the country or hosting friends for dinner or gathering for weddings and birthdays, and the next we are home indefinitely with the world around us shut down. But what we've seen over the past year and a half as we've struggled individually and collectively is the incredible strength born of vulnerability. The teachers who found ways to help children thrive and grow even when they couldn't be in the same room. The neighbors who dropped off groceries for people who could not get to the supermarket. The communities of faith who figured out how to worship, mourn, and celebrate together over Zoom. We have lived in metaphorical tents all this time, but this only reminds us that even our most impressive sanctuaries are ultimately tents, and that these tents, in fact, are our permanent condition. They make us stronger, more open, more searching, and creative. These tents are not the prototypes of our holy dwelling places. They are those holy dwelling places. Bilam's blessing is yet another reminder of our tradition's focus on sanctifying time and space. Moving from the ordinary, our daily lives, our personal tents, to the holy, our mishkanot, our synagogues, requires a ritual act, a blessing to sanctify the moment. It is not something we should take lightly or take for granted. It requires action. Reciting Bilam's famous words helps mark the transition and represents the significance of this action. Perhaps these words of Ma tovu alecha Yaakov mishkonatecha Yisrael, how good are your tents, Jacob, your holy dwelling places, Israel, will inspire and uplift us as we transition from the individual experiences of the past 16 months to the new collective experiences we are on the verge of creating together. I can't help but think about the work that we will need to do together to transform us from our places of dwelling in separate tents to gathering together in a sacred collective space. What elements will we need to bring with us to form these sacred spaces? So the question I pose tonight is not how we've experienced our own personal transformations, but rather, what will we do with this transformation? How will our own personal transformations guide and help shape our communal experiences here at WRT as we move closer to ushering in a new year in early September? If we imagine ourselves as Bilam standing up on the hill, what do we want to see down below? This is the question that I have been asking since I entered the doors of WRT just 3 months ago. In spite of the challenges of this difficult pandemic year, I feel grateful that I've had the time to have many Bilam moments, to admire the goodness and blessings of the special community, and to focus on the strengths and the opportunity for transformation that lies within our community and helps us create mishkanot, sacred spaces. And for all this and more, I say, Ma tovu, how good this is. Shabbat Shalom.
Yasher Koach Hila, and thank you for the kavod, the honor that you have given our community tonight, which is extended, of course, to your family. They get to kfel now, and your words here also provide a kavod for the memory of your mother. May it be blessed. Thank you so much. I will say to our community that I hope you'll take a couple minutes to introduce yourself to Hila after our service tonight and get to know her in the coming days, months. She's already making a transformational difference for WRT. There's a line from the prophets that speaks of tents. To the Jewish people, God commands, strike the pegs of your tent firm and enlarge the space of your dwellings. And that, I think, exactly is the charge that Hila is following here at WRT. She is strengthening our foundation and also enlarging the possibilities that this place might contain. WRT is going to emerge from this COVID pandemic not so much battered and bruised, but bold and raring to go. And it's largely because of the work that Hila will be doing to help our community thrive and visualize possibilities for the next generation. We are tremendously grateful. We want to lift our voices and maybe even our bodies as well. If you would please rise, page 586 for Aleinu.
Aleinu leshabeach ladon hakol, latei gdula liotzer breshit, shelo asanu kigoyei haratzot, velo samanu kemishpechot ha'adama, shelo sam chelkeinu kahen, vegor aleinu kechol hamonam, v'anachnu korim, umishtachavim umodim, לפני מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא.
למלך על כל הארץ, היום ההוא, ביום ההוא, יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו We want to acknowledge those in our community in mourning and invite them through the ritual of saying Kaddish for their loved ones to transform the curse of sadness and bereavement into the blessing that is experienced when one knows that one is surrounded by a loving and caring community, and in that way derives comfort. And so in the following order, would you please rise? Will those who are within a first week of having laid to rest a loved one please stand at this time? If you are within a first 30 days of remembrance, please rise. If you are within a first year of remembering your loved one, would you please rise? those who are marking a yahrzeit tonight, would you please rise? We invite our entire community to stand with you in sympathy and in fellowship as we name first those taken from our WRT family in the last 4 weeks, followed by those whose yahrzeit are observed tonight. We remember with love Daniel M. Sokoloff, husband of Martha Kaiser, father of Remy, Simon, and Esme Sokoloff, the son of Marcia and Zabby Sokoloff, brother of Heather Sokoloff. Richard Berger, father of Patricia Berger Friedman. Nancy Wexler, wife of Charles Wexler and mother of Karen Scheffler and Michael Wexler. Karen Mindich, wife of Mel Mindich and mother of Mark and Eric Mindich. Martin Lapidus, husband of Mary, father of Ricky, brother of Sid, and uncle of Gail Dobosh and Janet Nova. And Harold K. Bell, father of Larry Bell. We also remember Eleanor Aaron, Jacob G. Albert, Erwin Bernstein, Joseph Bernstein, Justin Blauner, Joan Bleiberg, Selig Broadwin, Andrew De Jesus, Ruth De Lemos, Beth Lisa Feldman, Jonas H. Freeman, Jerry Glixman, Belle Gold, Louis Ortner, Samuel Graff, Regina Granitor, Linda Hack, Bessie S. Haggerty, Stanley Josephs, Gertrude Kahn, Barbara Katz, George Kluback, Marcia Kutcher, David Lineal, Erwin Margolis, Benjamin Menel, Ellen Nathanson, Craig Newman, Patricia Reichig, Muriel Reingold, Aaron Riddell, Barbara Ross, Rose Rubinoff, Sydney Sachiloff, Isidore Schuster, Charlotte Schwartz, Seal R. Spector, James Weiner, Harold Wolf, Howard Uden, Saul Zweifach, and Myers Wickel. If you have additional names for our commemoration, kindly speak them at this time. Tihi zichronam baruch, may the memories of our loved ones provide blessing, as we provide blessing through the hallowed words of the Mourner's Kaddish, which are found on 598. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, ve'alma divrach chirutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael, ba'agalau v'zman kariv v'yimru amen. Yehei shemei Rabbah mevarach le'alam alamei amaya, yiparach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnasei, v'yithadar v'yitaleh v'yithalal shemei d'kudusha brichu, le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, da'amiran bi'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlam araba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. Osei shalom bimromav, hu ya'asei shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen.
Ose shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imeru amen.
We'll invite you to remain standing before we sing our concluding Adon Olam. Just a couple of brief announcements. Again, as I've said, every Friday during the summer, we invite members of the extended WRT community to offer meaningful remarks on our Friday night services, with one exception, and that's next Friday, when instead of members of the community speaking, we'll actually have a really special musical offering to celebrate July 4th weekend at our cherished annual custom of Star-Spangled Shabbat. Cantor, what's happening next Friday?
We have a wonderful jazz quartet joining us. The quartet is actually led by someone many of you know, Nadav Snir-Zelniker, who is a beloved musician and B'nai Mitzvah tutor here at WRT. And the quartet is going to be playing music from the Great American Songbook. And the topic of their presentation is what's Jewish about the Great American Songbook. So it should be wonderful. I hope you'll join us.
I would like to propose, instead of a whole lot of announcements, a challenge from the Bima. There's no reward for this other than you feel really good if you do it. And that is for you to make a commitment, each of you to make a commitment to do at least one Jewish learning experience over the summer. You have between now and Rosh Hashanah, which I was mistaken isn't exactly 9 weeks away. It's more like 10 and a half weeks away. Big deal.
That's a big deal for us.
Yeah, for that extra week and a half, man, that's when all the good stuff's going to happen. Take up the commitment to learn one new Jewish thing this summer. I'll lead the way. I have signed up for a 10-week, twice a week, 90 minutes a session, ulpan. That means I'm going back to Hebrew school, my friends. So I have signed up for an online ulpan where I will be studying with a group of 10 and a teacher in Israel. My class will meet 5:30 to 7 every Tuesday and Thursday between now and Sukkot, with the exception of the weeks of the high holidays. I'm really looking forward to it and to meeting my teacher and my classmates and to brushing up my conversational Hebrew, improving my vocabulary and my fluency. Mostly I'm just doing this for personal enrichment and for no practical benefit whatsoever. So we have to train ourselves out of the mindset that everything we endeavor to learn has to have some kind of pragmatic benefit. Learning is a great thing because it keeps you young, alive, and it frees your mind. So make the commitment to learn. You could start tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. when I will be joining our Torah study. We'd love to see you. We do a little minyan at 9 o'clock, and then we study the weekly portion from 9:30 to 11. As you've probably learned, there are a whole bunch of really interesting goodies in this week's Parashat Balak, so please join us online at 9 tomorrow. All right, let's end.
Right, so we'll conclude on page 625 with Adon Olam. This is a really fun Sephardic melody. You'll catch on quickly, so join us when you do.
Adon olam asher malach b'terem kol yitzir nivra li'et nasa v'chefso kol azar melech shemo nikra ואחרי ככלות הכל לבדו ימלוך נורא והוא היה והוא הווה והוא יהיה בתפארה והוא אחד באין שני להמשילו להכבירה בלי ראשית בלי תכלית ולא העוז והמצווה והוא אלי וחי גואלי וצור חבלי בעת צרה והוא ניסי ומנוס לי ונת כוסי ביום אקרא בידו אתקין רוחי בעת אישן מהעירה ועם רוחי גבייתי אדוני לי ולא יירא
Thank you to our greeters, Donna and David Rabin, tonight. If you would like to do the mitzvah of greeting our community on a Shabbat night, please talk to Nancy Michaels. Wave your hand, Nancy. After services, we'd love to have more volunteers doing this important mitzvah. Please wish one another Shabbat Shalom.
I'll take it, you know?